Morning, everyone. Thank you as always for joining so promptly. We're just going to give it a minute or so just to let the numbers come in, and then we will get started with today's webinar. Thank you. Right. Right, good morning, everyone. Thank you ever so much for joining us today. We've got our latest in our business support program webinar, Understanding the Essential Standards for Sizewell C. This is the second in our series that we've done on this subject. Obviously, we did one in September. And we've got the one today. Same content. So if there's any of you that joined in September as well, thank you for joining us again. Maybe you've got additional questions, so that would be great to hear from you. But as always with our webinars, we will have a presentation. We will do Q&A at the end. And we've got a number of experts from the project with us today, so that any questions you've got, hopefully to do with today's subject, we'll be able to cover them off and give you the answers that you also desperately need. My name's Ashley Shorey-Mills, Supply Chain Engagement Director here at Suffolk Chamber of Commerce, and many of you will be aware, obviously, the work we've been doing for a number of years, working with Sizewell C to kind of help unlock what's happening on this project and bring opportunities to local businesses. Next slide, please. So as a bit of an understanding of today, I'll get a couple of little slides from me just to give a bit of an overview. Then we've got a couple of our colleagues from Sizewell C. Tim Johnson, Head of Commercial for Site Delivery, will give a little bit of a welcome from a Sizewell C perspective on this subject. We'll then hear from Ben Pritchard on the commercial sides of what are the essential standards and understanding why they matter to the project. And then I'll talk you through some of the changes that we've made to the supply chain platform, including, I'm going to be stupid for doing this, but we're going to do a little live demo as well to help you understand what happens actually on the platform itself. And as always, ample time at the end for Q&A. We've had a lot of pre-submitted questions that we're also bringing forward from the September session. As well as some that were asked live, plus any that you want to ask today. So as always, please note, we will share all the slides. So don't worry if you're not able to scribble down too quickly. All notes will be shared afterwards. We will also, because we are recording, be hosting this on the website, so you better watch this back. So I encourage any questions you've got whatsoever, please put them in the Q&A. If they do end up in the chat, we will attempt to find them, but it's always easiest for us if you can put any questions you've got to do with the subject matter you're hearing today in the Q&A function. That'll be hugely appreciated. Next slide, please. So a couple of quick slides from me before I hand over to Tim. And just as always, the reminder, but why it's so important. Sizewell C have made lots and lots of commitments in the building of this project. And we've talked about these for a number of years now, but it's particularly the reason the Chamber of Commerce is providing the role we are in the East of England. There are the commitments of 4.4 billion through the east, to the East of England through the construction of Sizewell C. And that's very much where we want to see local and regional businesses of all shapes and sizes trying to play their part. It is a huge project. It is very vast in where it touches and the types of businesses that are required. Sizewell have made this commitment. They want to utilise local businesses. They want to build that legacy. But hence today's subject, it's important that as local businesses also step forward and be suitable and applicable to what the project needs. Next slide, please. And of course, outside of, fundamentally building something that the UK needs when it comes to energy security and producing low carbon energy, it also needs to be done in the right way. And Sizewell has always committed to the fact that they want to do some good. They are coming into Suffolk. They are, making a lot of noise. They're making a lot of impact in Suffolk, all for very positive reasons, but actually they then want to do some good out of it as well. So it's not just about building Sizewell, it's building Sizewell C in a very conscious way. And so ESG is a key part of that. Many of you will be aware on this slide that goal 1 is where we fit in. So it's not just words when they talk about this 4.4 billion in the East of England. It is by championing a UK supply chain and prioritising local and regional businesses where applicable first. So really try and focus that energy and effort. And of course, there's that wider context now. nuclear for the UK has become a key driver of growth over the next decade or two. So actually getting businesses ready for Sizewell C is not just about a single project anymore. It's about multiple projects, multiple angles within the nuclear sector, including the defence sector as well, to really give longevity and opportunity to local businesses. Next slide, please. So our priorities sit within where Sizewell want us to fit. Many of you will be aware we represent all 6 counties of the East. There's no difference from our perspective. You know, we are there to support you throughout, and we want to ensure that a business in Bedfordshire can play a role in Sizewell if they're the right business. And we're there to support you and handhold you through that process. And it's about making sure that we can encourage local first, both with regards to what Sizewell and its main contractors need, but also from local businesses, ensuring that they're using local firms, employing local people and developing that local landscape. But also that we have a legacy fit post Sizewell C construction. You know, it is a long project, it is a big project, but it will end. So therefore, okay, through the operational phase of Sizewell C and beyond the construction, where are the opportunities for local businesses? And ensuring that we have a landscape that is reflective of society throughout the construction of Sizewell C, but importantly beyond it, and promoting that growth that means that businesses have that enduring legacy from something like Sizewell C. And also, importantly, you know, Sizewell is a key part of the government's 2050 net zero ambitions. We need to ensure that actually as a supply chain that we're all contributing to that and addressing our own net zero aims and carbon reduction measures. Next slide, please. So final couple from me. What do we do? Well, today is an example of that. You know, we are there to support you. We sit as that tiny cog in between the project and its contracting partners and you as the local and regional supply chain. We're there to support you. If you have problems, you just reach out to us as a team. But it is about trying to, and I'll leverage Tim's comment he said before, you know, decoding the black box on these large projects. It is vitally important that we can help small businesses that maybe are not used to these large scale projects understand the complexities that are naturally going to be there and support you in whatever way we can. Next slide, please. So we have our engagement platform. Many of you on today's call, of course, be registered on this, but the local and regional supply chain portal, that's where the questions that we're going to talk about later today on the essential standards are hosted. They're all about helping local and regional businesses understand what it is to work on a project like Sizewell and to be prepared. But also there's lots and lots of other important information on the portal to do with other webinars and other events that we've hosted, including the ability to go back and watch all of our business support program webinars on individual subjects, to see future events that are coming up and to access opportunities, news and support in the right way. Final slide, please. And then, of course, you've got Compete For. So that's the national platform that Sizewell uses to promote all competitively tendered opportunities. So that is where you will see the opportunities that are live. You will see the ones that are also forthcoming. So there is the forward look and the contract awards tabs that have recently been updated that will give you the chance to be able to prepare for either opportunities that are in the future that you might be interested in bidding for, but importantly, looking at where the contracts have been awarded. Because for most local and regional businesses, we appreciate you are unlikely to be the tier 1 contractor on a project like this. We shouldn't be afraid of that, because those commitments that Sizewell have made roll through the supply chain. So it's not just Sizewell committing to use local and regional businesses, it's then by nature their tier 1 contractors, their alliance partners that will also be encouraged and mandated and contracted to use local and regional businesses. So actually understanding where those contracts have gone is vitally important for local businesses, and we can support that process, but it is important that businesses also register on Compete For to really keep themselves as up to date as possible with what's happening. Next slide. And this should be, yes. So at this point, I will pause. I'll be back on again a little bit later to talk about the questions, but I will welcome Tim just to say a few words. Tim.
Thanks, Ashley. And welcome all. Appreciate your time and energy to sort of learn a little bit more around the project, and ultimately how you and your businesses can help support us deliver Sizewell C going forward. So thank you and welcome. As Ash said, really, I think a key thing for me and a key driver for the team is really trying to help and understand or decode that black box of what we're looking for as an organisation, and give you the opportunities as businesses to to sort of look inside that black box to help us decode that and ultimately help you win work for us and win work and contracts on Sizewell C. But greater and over and above that, excuse me, is to help your businesses become fitter for the future as well, and to win work not just on Sizewell C but on other projects that will have similar standards and similar expectations for the supply chain to stand up to as part of working with a large project. So the team, so Ben's got a number of information that will kind of take you through and help you support that. The local supply chain is really important to us as a project. So personally for me, it's a big thing. It's something that I'm expecting us to absolutely hit and exceed our ambitions and targets that we do with driving spend and commitments with our local supply chain. Because if we can get this right, it's beneficial for our project, for people who know the local area, know and understand the constraints that we do have around the area, and ultimately we want people who are passionate around that and passionate for the project. So hopefully you'll find the next half an hour or so of the session interesting, and give you some tips and some topics to focus on. You are the experts in what you do. You are the experts in your businesses. We don't want to change any of that. All we're looking to do here is to give you that kind of foot up and give you that opportunity to know what we're looking for within Sizewell, so that you can get that competitive advantage and work with us either directly or through our supply chain. So very welcome, and hopefully we can help decode some of that black box of what Sizewell is to the outside world sometimes. So thank you very much, and I'll hand over, I think, to Ben now.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Ashley. Morning, everyone. Next slide, please, Beth. Thanks everyone for joining, and I don't think I can put it better than Tim and Ashley have. I'll try and help you decode what those requirements are, but just to give you a little bit more about me. So I'm Ben Pritchard. I'm a senior commercial manager here at Sizewell, and I currently look after governance and all things in terms of our procurement process, looking at ways of how we can improve that. But this is actually something that's quite close to my heart as a topic, trying to support local SMEs. As that picture on the left there shows you, construction has been in my blood from a very young age. What that doesn't show you per se, because it looks quite sunny, that photo is actually in North Wales, and over in the distance you would see Wilver. And I grew up listening to my dad, who ran a local building company, moan about how difficult it was to win any work at Wilver and in the nuclear industry. So clearly, I did listen to my parents, and I am trying to make a difference. So I'll have to remind him next time I talk to him about what we're doing. Next slide, please, Beth. So just to give you a little bit of what we're trying to do. So we're trying to ensure that our procurement process is as straightforward and as practical and as useful for both Sizewell and the supply chain, trying to remove any duplication of effort and trying to make it really clear as to what our expectations are at each stage of that procurement process. So Ashley's already mentioned Compete For. Compete For is our tool that we use for our expression of interests. That will be where we go out to market and we let you know what's coming up. We let you know what the opportunity is, what it looks like, and importantly, we will use this as an opportunity to highlight any minimum standard requirements. As much as we want to simplify and decode things, at times, it is a nuclear power station. There might be some instances where there are certain standards that are must-haves, and we'll do our best to make sure that these are highlighted at the earliest possible opportunity at that EOI stage, so that we don't essentially waste anyone's time through the procurement process. The PQQ, the focus on that PQQ is very much selection, it's SQEP, it's competency. It's about making sure that the supply chain that we take forward to tender are suitably qualified to complete the works, standard requirements across all opportunities, which we'll come to in a little bit more detail when we start talking about the essential standards. But again, specific requirements based on scope might be there as well. Then the last bit of the jigsaw is that ITT. It's what allows us to establish who's the best athlete to complete the works, who creates the greatest value for us, and we look very much to try and weight accordingly commercial, technical, and ESG requirements within that. Next slide, please, Beth. We are very keen and we continue to strive and we have made progress over the last 6-12 months and we'll continue to make progress. This is very much evolution, not revolution, but we are keen in particular for site delivery where it's most applicable to simplify the process, to simplify the PQQ, the ITT, but also simplify our contract packs. So it's a key driver for us to make sure that what we're doing is fully applicable to the scope. So we are trying to embed that flexibility within what we do to allow us to create a process that is better for everyone involved. Next slide, please, Beth. So why the essential standards? Well, it comes down to what Ashley and Tim were talking about at the start, that need to decode, demystify, whatever your favorite adjective is. But we really want to provide clarity on the typical standards and expectations within the Sizewell pre-qual. We want to support SMEs to enter the supply chain. We want to identify areas that this chamber can support SMEs in the region. So really look to establish sort of learning pathways so that we can help ensure that there's a lasting legacy. Sizewell will be here for a while, but we want to make sure the supply chain can continue to grow, to strengthen, and be here for whatever's next, whether that's supporting one of the other nuclear projects around the UK or one of the other infrastructure projects that are always going to appear around the East London, the Midlands, wherever you want to work. We want to make sure that we align with the CWA and other partners. We want to make sure that wherever possible, what we ask for is what the CWA asks for, is what the MEH Alliance, when that is fully onboarded, asks for, so that you're not constantly being confused by what we as the ultimate client require. And where possible, we'll use things such as the common assessment standards. So you'll start seeing more and more in our pre-quals that if you can provide a certified common assessment standard, that you may not have to answer certain questions, but it allows the flexibility where possible as well, so that if you don't have it, you're still providing us the information required to demonstrate that competency. But again, using standards that are prevalent across the industry wherever possible to simplify the process is important in this next iteration of what we're looking at. Next slide, please. So what are the essential standards? What are the things that we continuously ask for, that we continuously look for? None of these will probably be a surprise, but your quality management system, environmental management system, occupational health, they're all things that are very important to us. We won't always require the ISO standard, but we will require you to have a quality management system, an environmental management system. And then it depends on what the scope is, what the risk of the work is, as to, what we ask for. We will always encourage people to look at the standards because, ultimately it is that tick in the box, but also it ensures that, an ISO, when put in place well, it helps you establish the continuous improvement plan. It helps you establish ways for you to continue to improve and grow. So we will, where possible, be flexible as to do we require the ISO. However, we will encourage where possible for people to look at these types of things. Modern slavery is sort of important that we avoid it at all costs. So we want to make sure that our supply chain understands what modern slavery means, that you have ways of looking out for it, so directly or indirectly through your supply chain. Again, sort of, we don't expect SMEs to have really in-depth policies, processes, procedures, but what are you doing? How are you learning? How are you improving? Will also be really important to us. And that's the same with code of conduct and DE&I. We want to make sure that these key principles, key understandings are well established. And we don't expect sort of, you guys to be on the same par as the CWA partners, but the principles are what we're really keen to look for and understand. Sorry. Carbon management and net zero. So we're driving towards being sort of reducing carbon at all stages. Obviously, Sizewell is a key part of the UK's net zero journey by creating green energy ultimately. But as we move through construction, we're looking at things like diesel-free from 2030 opportunities, if not sooner. We're looking at sort of, what can we do around green vehicles as well in general, and we do have PAS 2080 as our standard, and again, we do not expect everyone to have PAS 2080, but we will require our supply chain to help us understand what our carbon footprint is. We'll require our supply chain to help us manage, improve, measure all of these things. So again, we don't have an expectation for everyone to be looking at their scope 1, 2s and 3s, or at times understand what that really means, but join us on that journey. Let us help you as well. Ashley will come to it in a minute, what we're doing in terms of gathering that information so that we can then turn it around and help the local SMEs look for how to do these things. Cyber security is obviously barely a day goes by when there isn't a story of some description. So generally, a minimum of cyber essentials, I think is pretty standard, not just for us, but across the board. But again, this is very scope specific. So, there may be requirements for ISO 27001. There might be requirements for DPIA and all sorts of other requirements, but just as a standard, as a minimum, cyber essentials. And again, you should, as an organization, want to ensure that you're being safe with your data. So we would suggest that this would be a good thing to do anyway. Corporate compliance, I mean, again, they're the simple sort of, anti-bribery and corruption, sanctions and all those type of things. So again, as long as you're of good standing, none of these will be a concern. However, just making sure that you have those policies in place, that you have that opportunity for someone to flag within your organization any poor behavior and things like that. We would expect and hope that you as organizations have those in place. And common assessment standard, PAS 91, etc. These are things that again, they're not requirements, but they will simplify things for you as well. And as we move forward and as we improve the systems we use as well, we'll get to a stage where we'll be able to ask you a question once, you answer once, and we'll be able to hold on to that information and be far better at minimizing the rework that you have through our procurement process. Next slide, please. There we go. So those are the key things that we're looking for moving forward in our pre-qual. So, I think the key messages are that we're really looking to embed flexibility, that we're really looking to ensure that what we ask for, we're not going to go nuclear grade for everything. We're going to be really careful as to what are the requirements for the scope of work that we're procuring. All yours, Ash.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. And to be fair, I completely forgot, Ben. We said in the September one I was going to put a little slide with a picture of me as a small child and do a bit of an intro, and I forgot.
That's fine.
Updates in September. I mean, I did the Ipswich half marathon, and I'm still here, and I now have a cat. So there you go. There's my update. I wasn't constructing things as a young boy in the shadow of Wilfer, though, sadly. But yes, right, brilliant. Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Tim. Okay, so what I'm going to kind of do now is we're going to talk through, I'm going to show you some screenshots and the types of questions and really look at the detail behind what it is we're doing and what we've done on the portal. And then I said, once I've shown those, I'm then going to go live and just show how it physically works and the impact it has. So hopefully lots of bits and pieces will come out of this that will then look at some questions. So next slide, please. So the first one I want to show, and okay, appreciate some of the text has changed color, but many of you have seen this slide that we've shown on previous webinars and previous events where we've kind of, in advance of today, been trying to educate businesses anyway, learning the lessons from Hinckley. Because don't forget, when we talk about Sizewell being a replication of Hinckley, that focus is obviously on the design, right? So the design of Sizewell is a direct replica of Hinckley to save cost, to save time, and to start to build that fleet. Fantastic. But it's also about a replica of Hinckley of learning lessons. So always looking back at what happened at Hinckley gives businesses a great opportunity to understand what they can be doing. But the importance of this slide and the relevance of this slide is just the first point to really make is that the areas in red on there, you know, those things that are talking about financial and technical, our job within the chamber is to really help you get as best prepared as you can for that PQQ process that Ben just spoke about. So really your corporate readiness, your social value, those bits that make you a business that ultimately help you be secure for Sizewell to want to contract with you. Because beyond that PQQ, when you get to the ITT stage, that's where the technical and pricing element comes in. So just to really reiterate that part, you're the experts. You on the call today, you're the ones who know how to deliver the work which you want to deliver on Sizewell. You will know what price you need to quote. We can't help you in those areas. We would never profess to be able to. But our job is to help you get as best prepared as possible for when that opportunity either direct with Sizewell or with its tier one contractor or alliance partner when they need you. So that therefore they know securely, I can work with this company, and the fact they're a local or regional is brilliant. They tick that fantastic box. So helping you understand how you evidence what you can deliver is so important. And for you, it's showing that financially you're not a risk, that you're competitive, that you're competent in what you do. You know, writing tenders, we know, is a bit of an art form. There are things that we can help unlock and introduce you to experts for. But it is important that businesses understand that when it comes to that bidding process, you know, you're the experts in certain areas. We will support you in everything in advance of that as much as we can. Right, next slide, please. So first bit, the non-scoring bit, if you like, I suppose, but the standard questions on your platform, we will still be asking that core detail. You know, we want to understand who you are, where you're based. Obviously, the way you're based is critical because we are there to represent businesses in the 6 counties of the East. To stress, and I'm sure a question will be asked, and it did on the last one, Sizewell is open to businesses from across the UK. Right? If you happen to be based in the Midlands, you have just as much chance of winning work on Sizewell. They've just made specific commitments to make sure that they are doing good in different parts of the country. You saw my map earlier, the east of England, the north of England and Wales. But there are businesses working on this project already from London, from the greater southeast, from the Midlands. But it is about making sure that it's proportionate and where you register. And that's the reason we want this information, because then we can start to understand more about your business. So we'll ask you these types of questions. The main reason we ask these as well is they help us to help you. Most of the examples we have at the moment where where Sizewell or its tier one partners or its alliance partners come forward and will ask us who we have locally. What types of businesses do you have who can do X, Y, Z? And it's by us using the information you give us, the descriptions you tell us about your business, the keywords that you use, and the categories in which you work that really help us on that first draft, that long listing, to give an idea for, is this business relevant to what Sizewell need? That's then also how we drive our invites for some of our events, some of our more specific, very tailored roundtable and meet the bar events. It's so important that you're able to look at your company portal, that you spend some time on this and then help us to help you. They are all non-scoring when it comes to the essential standards, and I'll explain the scoring bit as we go on a bit later, but they are so important and should still be given a lot of time. Next slide, please. So it will look much the same, but it's just information about your business, telling us as much as you can about what you do, helping us to be able to connect with you and I'll show an example later, but don't just put one contact down, because honestly, you'll be amazed the amount of times we get chased by businesses saying, I wasn't aware of this, I wasn't aware of that. And we've sent it out, but we don't have enough company contacts. You can put multiple on. It's so important that the right people are registered on this database who can then respond to requests and questions if they're put forward. Next slide, please. So the first of kind of the scoring aspect really kicks in when we talk about corporate compliance. Now you'll see a big list. I'm not going to read down each of them, but you'll see a big list of the types of questions that are going to be asked. And a lot of them are what Ben has just touched on in particular. And they are really about helping Sizewell understand, in all honesty, can we work with this business? Are they going to put this project at risk, particularly on time? You think of a 10 to 12 year build program, you think, oh, they've got loads of time. This program is stacked and it overlaps itself in multiple different ways with multiple different stakeholders. So delivering on time, on budget is the overriding priority as long as keeping people safe. So therefore, they need to make sure that the entire supply chain that can work on this project can keep to on time, on budget and safe. So that's the reason we ask these types of questions, and the bulk of this work will really fit into this corporate compliance. Okay, and importantly, and Ben kind of referenced it, it's not necessarily always about being about the gold standard. So if you reference the ISO question a moment from Ben, it's not about having the ISOs today, but it's about having processes and procedures in place that are acceptable to Sizewell, but ultimately the direction of travel. And we say this a lot, it's not always about where you are, it's your direction of travel as a business, because Sizewell wants to see businesses growing and benefiting. Tim's point was a valid one. I've been with a number of other large scale projects that are happening in the region, either currently or currently going through their consenting. And they're all wanting the same types of standards. So look at it that getting ISOs, for example, it might not be critical, but you know what? It will save you an awful lot of paperwork over the next few years if you do have them. But also, it's not just about Sizewell. It's unlocking some of the other energy infrastructure projects. It's unlocking some of the road and rail infrastructure projects that are happening. The likes of a Lower Thames crossing is going to want all these standards. The likes of the new hospital build programme that's going to affect our area is going to want these standards. And I would half imagine that Universal Studios in Bedfordshire, for anyone who wants to build a theme park, will expect these types of standards. So it's so important that we can educate across all of this. And a lot of it is building confidence for Sizewell C, building confidence that if they're not going to use the standard approach to procurement, if they're going to want to use more local and regional firms, that confidence of delivery is then there. Now, what is important, and this will be true across all of the essential standards, is that if you need support, that's where you then reach out. And I'll explain how that will work a little bit later on. But it's also important to be accurate and honest. There's no point ticking every single box on the essential standards so that you get top score, because as soon as Sizewell come forward for the PQQ and ITT, it will be transparent and you will be seen. So I have to stress as well, not that I'm expecting people to be dishonest, but the more honest you are, the more open you can be with us about where you're at, the more we can help you. Next slide, please. So again, it will look similar. There'll be lots and lots of questions. And I'll show live a bit more detail of how this will work. Lots of different options to help you be able to answer those questions and then give the data that we need spitting out the other end. Next slide, please. Will then also be a big part on social value and people. Some of these are scoring, some of these are just for information. But again, is critical. I showed it earlier, the ESG slide. ESG is so important. Social value will score at least 10% across pretty much every single procurement on this project. And we're already seeing procurements have 20% or higher weighting on social value because the project wants to do good. And that will be applicable. You will not have to deliver every single aspect of social value on every single contract you're bidding for, because there'll be certain ones that will lend themselves more to certain parts of their ESG commitments that the project has made. And again, those ESG commitments will roll down the contract, they'll roll down the supply chain. But it is, although not everything is essential, it is vital, as with everything we've done as a chamber, to make you fully aware. So pretty much everything you will see on the slide in front of you, we've previously done webinars for. You will find them on our business support program part on the support of our website, because we want to help you, educate you. So take Ben's point on carbon monitoring. understanding scope emissions is becoming increasingly important. But it is important for everyone to understand that for someone like a Sizewell to be able to understand its scope 3 emissions, it needs its supply chain to at least understand its scope 1, ideally its scope 2. So if everyone just starts to understand these things, then actually we have a much more efficient supply chain that's able to kind of handle carbon monitoring moving forward and see the changes we want. So again, none of this will be a massive surprise, but it is about how we help you as a business understand what it is you need to do and how to get ready for these opportunities that are coming forward of delivering some good as well as the technical expertise on site. Next slide, please. So again, you will see similar type of theme of the types of questions you will be asked and the way in which they'll lay themselves out, which again, I'll show you in a moment. So next slide, please. Then you have data. So important. It's only a small slide, but it is now critical. I know lots of people have asked us over the last few years, do I have to be cyber secure? We can say without doubt, if you are not cyber security accredited, I'm not going to say it doesn't mean you can work on the project, but like a lot of these things, the more you can adhere to the essential standards that this project needs, the more likely you are to win work on Sizewell. And so cyber essentials is the minimum. But as Ben said, there may be certain parts of this project where they don't just want Cyber Essentials Plus, they actually want the ISO. And again, that will be applicable, but depending on the contract. But our mission is to educate on what you need to be getting and what you need to have in place to be able to answer those questions. And again, prove to Sizewell that you are a safe and secure pair of hands to be able to deliver what you're technically excellent at doing. Next slide, please. And then, of course, you have things like accreditations and insurances. So, yes, there's lots of automated questions of, do you have this ISO, yes or no? Do you have this policy, yes or no? But there are lots and lots of other types of accreditations that businesses have. And we want to know about them. And you'll see when I do the live demo, we've already tweaked the answer set a little from what you see on the screen here. Because as we understand more and more those things that are critical to the vast majority of the project, we will start to ask those more direct questions. Because again, the reason we do that is that then helps you as a business best prepare for the opportunities that are coming forward. So it is a little bit of a catch-all, but it's the ability for you to be able to type in and tell us your types of accreditations that you've got. And then we can educate you within your sectors by you filling out that first part, telling us about your business on the things that you need to be doing. And again, then helping the project understand that you are liability-wise, insurance-wise, safe and secure to work with. Next slide, please. So what will then happen is it will take all of the answers that you've given and it will give you a score. We've made it as simple as we possibly can because it does need to be a little bit of a tool that just point and shoot. So you will be red, you will be amber, you will be green. So it will take all of the answers that are critical for the PQQ phase of Sizewell, allocate a score accordingly and give you an idea. Now, what is I must stress, okay, and rest assured, this is not the actual PQQ. So if you are red, which the vast majority of businesses, I have no doubt, will be. Doesn't matter. As mentioned, it is not about where you are now, it is the direction of travel. It may not be important that you can tick every box for the contract you're about to go to. But the idea being is it gives us a starting point with you as a business and us as a chamber of where we start, of moving businesses from red, particularly into at least amber. And then as many as we can from amber to green would be wonderful. But for most businesses, maybe being green is that step too far of what you need to do at the level of supply chain which you're going to be working in. But it's education. Like everything, the more we can inform you as a business of what's happening and what's expected of you, the better informed decisions you can make as a business. It's the same with when we talk about the project. We will often, through some of our webinars and some of our forthcoming events, we will be telling you about stuff that you will never, ever probably work within. But actually our view as a chamber is the more informed you can be as a local and regional supply chain on what's actually happening, the more you can make the right decisions for your business. But no one else sees your score other than, I mean, apart from that, everyone's now seeing the chamber score, but no one sees your score other than us as a chamber and you as a business. It's not about this score being shared across the entire supply chain. It is there as a to-do list for us and for you on what we need to do next. It enables reporting on this stuff. It enables support. So it's very much an enabling function to educate you and inform you in the best way possible. Next slide, please. Right, now, this is the moment where I'm going to share my screen, and fingers crossed this works. So I'm going to hope now, because it's saying it's sharing, that you can see, I'm getting a nod from next to me, so you can see a screen. So when you are in the back office of your login, so this is the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce login, we will get our summary, and it will tell you how you're doing, and it will give you the summary of all the answers for each of the questions that have scoring attributed to them. As you will see, we've put a big note there to help you understand and put you at rest. Don't worry. Being green does not mean you can't work on the, being green doesn't guarantee you work. Equally, red doesn't mean you cannot work. It is about raising the standards, raising the tide of businesses so that we can take the most advantage of the projects like Sizewell that are ahead. I did an event last week where a major national tier 1 contractor was talking about what they expect to see from the supply chain through their tendering, and even they referenced the common assessment standard as being critical to them. So this is not just about Sizewell, this is about their tier 1 contractors as well. But you will have, if I scoot down here, so again, as I say with company details, it is so important that these are accurate. I know it sounds like a very obvious thing to say, but you will be amazed as to how many times we are editing people's entries where there is inaccuracies on here. But it is also important that you answer all of these questions in full, and where possible, add a second contact. So, and it is as simple as just putting the person in, and there we go. I'm going to do, and because I'm greedy and got 2 surnames, I think I'm a title now. It takes me a little bit longer. And then you can put everything in. All of you have got my email address anyway, so I haven't got a problem with putting this on live. And away we go. And of course, you can then add that contact. And whenever you do any changes, you then just simply scan up to where it is your update or your save, and then it will add that contact. It is so important, please, aside from anything to do with essential standards, that you are putting in multiple contacts for your business just to help us out. Now, you will see on the questions. So if I look at the corporate compliance, everything is on there. Now, one change that we have already made since we did the first ones, and the slides you will see, is we do now have, and everyone will have defaulted on these new questions to the term unanswered. Now, the reason we wanted that is because it's vitally important that an assumption isn't made of no, or an assumption isn't made of yes. So for any business who has not been onto the website yet and had a look, any new question or any question that is particularly different from what we asked before will now automatically default to unanswered. You can then go in and answer that question accordingly. And it is important you do. If you take, for example, the likes of the environmental management system, and the ISOs are all the same on this, it will give you 3 options. So it can be, so this is asking, do you have an environmental management system accredited to the ISO standard? Yes, we do. No, we don't, but we do have an environmental management system. So i.e., and I know a question's already been asked on this, we have an environmental management system. It is just not to ISO standards, or it's not been accredited formally to their standards. You can then ask these questions, answer these questions. All right. So in this example, as a chamber, we're not going to answer yes, because we don't have ISO 14001. But what we do have is an environmental management system in place. So we can answer that. Now, what I will do very briefly is I will show you immediately now by going update. And you will now see our score has changed from 60 to 63, because that was, and I'll find the question. There it is. That was a question where there is scoring attributed. Now, if I had answered, yes, we have ISO 14001, that would have given me 5 out of 5. The idea being is I understand now as a business, by having nothing, I scored 0. By having something, I scored 3. If I did have the ISO, I'd have scored 5. I can then decide within, I can't, but as a business, we can decide as a chamber, actually, if it's going to help us on the likes of Sizewell and other projects, is there any greater need or greater good for us as a chamber to potentially have 14,001? We can then look into, should we financially be doing this? So you'll see it is live when these changes happen. You will also see plenty of other questions asking bits and pieces about what you have in place and what's going on and what you can evidence. Now, when it comes to social value and people, again, some of these are scoring, some of them are not, because they are for our information. So again, you'll have, for example, some of these social value related questions. Does your organisation actively engage with local schools, colleges, prisons? That's not scoring, because it may have nothing to do with the package of works that you're looking to do. But it is vitally important, one, you as a business understand that that is something that Sizewell is looking for. But two, that us as a chamber could then help you, because anyone that answers no, we can help you connect into whether it is the local colleges that are relevant to you as a business, the local prisons that maybe you can connect into to help people transition back into work, and so on. So with this, we can proudly tick yes because of the work we're doing. Same with, do you engage with voluntary and social groups? So you'll see all of these are new questions, so hence they are all unanswered, but we can then answer them accordingly. Now, do we have any active plans in place to increase biodiversity? Now, we don't do huge amounts. We're a little office, but what we do is we do lots of volunteering, to encourage biodiversity in other parts. So again, it's about what you can do to add that little bit of value. And then should you need to evidence it through that ITT stage of this project, you'll be able to do so. And you'll see here, for example, I'll reference this one because Ben did on the carbon emissions. So it asks the question, do you report your carbon emissions and actively pursue net zero? You can see you've got the various answers to help you understand at what scope you're at. Now, again, if scopes, when you're talking about carbon emissions, is complete gobbledygook to anyone on this call, this is another thing that we're there to help with, because we can help connect you into the organisations and the structures that are in place in Suffolk to help businesses understand this better and help you be able to answer those questions and start to monitor. There'll also be some questions that may be irrelevant to you. So, for example, we now ask the question, do you have a gender pay gap policy? So the answer is yes, no, unanswered, or not required. Because for certain businesses, you don't actually have to answer that question. You may well do it anyway. You may well have that policy. You may well have similar policies. So fine, you can say yes. But again, it's important that we're trying to make this applicable as possible for the majority of businesses that we're going to be talking to. Data protection is self-explanatory. We've spoken about it. It is vitally important that you can answer the questions that are required. And then it's the same with accreditations and insurances. So you will see I've put a few of ours on there. We have more. It is a little bit of a catch-all, but we want to understand those different accreditations that you have as a business. And construction lines, one of those first ones that we have took out and separated so we can ask specifically that question. So again, a bit like the ISOs, if you are construction line gold, and for those of you that were on our webinar in August with the Civil Works Alliance, you will have heard they want construction line gold as an ideal for businesses, because if you've got that, you are ticking so many of the previous boxes anyway, so it smooths and speeds up that process. It will actually make you a more efficient organization anyway. But there are lots of levels. For those who are not familiar with construction line, you can actually just join as an associate member. So if you want to start to understand what construction line can do, then actually just have a look at their website. You can join as an associate member for nothing. And then there are different levels. Again, it's not about everyone being gold today. It is about understanding that direction of travel that businesses are in, and then that support that's there. And we're working very closely with the Civil Works Alliance and some of the tier 1 contractors on site that are actively encouraging businesses and want businesses to evidence construction line standards. And then, of course, you've got, these are unchanged, your categories and capabilities. So important that you can put in what it is you do to help us best represent you. Put in your case studies so that we can understand some examples of the work, and make sure you're putting your turnover figures in so that we can understand the size of your business, what you're able to do, and how you operate. Because then also lots and lots of contracts come out at lots and lots of values. It's so important as well that we can help you understand where you fit within the supply chain. If a contract value is £20 million, the project is not going to be working with businesses that turn over under £20 million to win that contract. Okay, it has to be secure. But it is about making sure you can then understand where you fit within the supply chain. But as you see, it will then give you that summary, and that summary is something you can use. You can either then run off and go and find that support from somewhere. You can reach out to our team and say, hey, I need someone to come and help me understand about policies for tax evasion. Hopefully to avoid tax evasion, I should point. We can help that. We can introduce you to the expertise. What we will then be doing is, as more and more businesses fill out the essential standards, we will be looking at those trends. Where are the biggest gaps for local businesses? And we will either resubmit our previous webinars, we will re-record them again if we feel we need to, or we will add new webinars, new events, new workshops, in-person things to really help engage the supply chain, educate them on what is required, and really deliver that support so that you as a business know it's not just I have to do this, it's they've also told me where the support is, they've laid on the support, they've directed me. And it may well be, and it is important to say, that actually then for some of these, you need to bring expertise in. That's absolutely fine. You know, we as a chamber are not experts on all of these things that are on the screen. That is not our role. We're there to wayfind, we're there to support, we're there to enable. And there's been numerous occasions already that businesses where they are working already on Sizewell have then asked for intros to local health and safety specialist firms, to local carbon monitoring firms, to local legal experts who can help them with their contracts. That's absolutely fine. Same with companies that can come in and help you write tenders. Sometimes there will be investment that you will have to make as a business to get to these standards, but the aim is to make it as relevant and as beneficial, that investment, as we possibly can. Right, so I hope that quick live sort of run through has given you an idea. But as it shows, you know, if we want to be green as a chamber, we've got work to do. But we know, see, we're very fortunate, we're delivering on Sizewell. We're able to hit all of the key credentials they want from us currently. But that doesn't stop us wanting to improve as a business, wanting to make ourselves better at what we do to deliver, to then help us support this contract. Right, so we will now flip back to the presentation slides. Fingers crossed that this works. I'm just going to go off that. Yes, it has. Look at that. Fantastic. So as a little bit of an additional summary. Okay, so the essential standards, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure you all understand this, but to say it out loud, it's not going to catch all. There is always still going to be very specific needs, either of your people or of your business, that be required for you to deliver on project. So a very easy example that we always give is, if you have vehicles that are going to be delivering to site, you have to be FORS registered. So the Fleet Operation something society, I can't remember what it stands for, but to do with the types of vehicles you have and the way you look after your vehicles, and also the way your people are looked after who drive those vehicles. Now, we can't have that as an essential standard because for lots of businesses, you're never driving in vans and trucks to site. But there will always be additional considerations, and our job is to try and help educate you within individual sectors as to what those are. If you're ever unsure of those, again, do not be afraid to reach out. And as we work with the project to understand more of those industry specific accreditations, where you saw we put the construction line thing on our website, we will add them onto there. And of course, there will be requirements and standards that will be required of your people on site. So again, we're working with the Employment Affairs Unit at Sizewell to again help educate and help you as a business understand that, okay, corporately, we can work on this project. How can I best prepare my people? Do they have to have certain cards, certain tickets? Do my managers have to be ILM to a certain level, etc., etc.? It's really about helping you as a business understand to work on Sizewell. Also, any other large scale project, certainly government procurement, even local authority procurement, the sorts of standards of your people that are required as well. And of course, we will be ongoing monitoring and reviewing of these standards all of the time. So as things come forward, as we learn lessons, working with Ben, working with Tim, working with the alliances and other parts of the project, we will help and change and adapt these accordingly. So kind of what happens next? Well, it is so imperative now that all companies, there's 2,919 of you on our platform now, We need all of you to revisit the portal. Update your entry. Don't be afraid. If it is red, it does not matter. We are at a starting point with this. The PQQ and your ability to bid is separate. This is about starting that journey to help get you ready for Sizewell and other projects. It may well be that it does not make financial sense for you as a business to get the ISO. That's fine. At least we can make sure you've got the policies and practices in place. Sizewell may have to ask a few more questions of you through the PQQ. They may have to visit your business to do an audit a little bit more regularly than they would have to if you have an ISO. But they do this. They're doing this all the time already. And some of the smaller companies that we've already successfully supported in working on Sizewell did that well in advance of them getting any ISO, because they had the policies and practices and procedures in place that can be audited, can be reviewed, and can be monitored. That's the important thing. But what this will do is give you a clear to-do list for your business to be ready for these projects. It gives also us, both the chamber and Sizewell, a clear direction on what support's required. Because if barriers are put in place of local businesses, then trust me, Sizewell want to understand what those barriers are. How do we overcome them? Ben's picture earlier of lots of paperwork, small amounts of paperwork, learning the lessons from Hinckley, learning the lessons from other major infrastructure projects, your HS2s and your Tideways of this world, to really understand how they can decode that phrase that was used earlier a lot, decoding that black box, make it as simple as possible for local businesses to get involved in this project. And it's the ability to work, from our perspective, with local and national stakeholders, how to design and develop that business support that's needed. Because we know business support programs are required for businesses. So therefore, if we can use this data to direct that limited funding that is available, but into the right places at the right time for the right businesses, then we're all going to benefit from it. So actually, by you filling out the essential standards, you are actually having a much bigger impact than you probably imagine outside of just your business in helping us inform the likes of Suffolk County Council, the likes of some of the government departments, and their major infrastructure partners such as Sizewell on actually what's needed locally with regards to business support. And importantly, change from the when we delivered this in September, updates are now live. We went live on Friday last week. No doubt there'll still be some tweaks, as there always is, but you can go live. You can visit the website now, update those questions. As you can probably appreciate, since Friday, since it's gone live, we have been inundated with businesses updating. Please bear with us if you have questions, if you have concerns, because we are going to have to get through this first phase. But the aim, certainly by the point we get to sort of mid-late November, hopefully we will have many, many hundreds, it'd be lovely to be in the thousands, of businesses having registered and updated that will then help us design through 2026 the support programs that we want to deliver. Okay, next slide, please. I think it's now Q&A. Yes, it is. Now, I've got obviously pre-submitted questions from before. But I will also ask a couple of the questions that are live now before I touch on to some of the others. So let's have a look. So have Sizewell published their ESG commitments so that potential suppliers are able to review and seek to ensure that they meet the same commitments? Greg, I'll answer it briefly. And if any of my colleagues from Sizewell want to stick their camera on answer as well, then fantastic. But yes, they have. If you visit both our website, also Compete For, and actually Sizewell's website, they are clearly on there. Certainly on the Compete For front page, it's actually just above when you, on the home page of Compete For, one of the first options you will see as you scroll down the page is the ESG commitments that Sizewell has put forward. But also, if you look at our business support program on our website, each aspect of those 5 goals that I showed earlier, we've done webinars on those subjects to help, again, you understand. Now, actually, what the commitments will be on each contract will vary. As mentioned earlier, if they're looking to contract a service that's going to supply, not going to come to site, it's going to supply a service that's going to deliver from a distance into the project, then it would be pretty pointless maybe them looking at, they want that type of company to look at carbon monitoring because maybe they don't really have a big carbon impact. But that type of business could be better suited to skills, apprenticeships, bringing people from the care sector into employment, for example. They could be far better at other aspects. So the ESG commitments that they will want will be applicable in different ways, but you will be able to see all of those ESG commitments on all 3 websites. if we have valuable contacts assisting in the likes of sustainability, are these contacts that Sizewell or Suffolk Chamber would like to potentially assist other partners and potential suppliers if they don't have their own contacts? So I'm presuming on this, Greg, you're kind of saying as a business yourself, you can help businesses. What's an important point about our supply chain portal for everyone that registers is that actually it's the single platform that you can all use. So when, for example, I used a good example earlier of businesses that approached us, they needed someone to come in and help them monitor their carbon. So all we did is use our database. So use those businesses that are supplying, that want to supply Sizewell, and we made that intro. So register on the platform and other businesses locally can find you as well. That's the whole purpose of the platform, to create this ecosystem of businesses that are interested in working on Sizewell C, both direct for the client, but indirectly through all the other benefits, all the other ways into the project that they possibly can. And then obviously, there's a statement there. Yeah. And Carol's a great example. Everyone is, there's so many businesses that locally want to help. And I think what's important is that, again, we can use local firms, reach out to us, we can support people in understanding what they need to do to improve their business. It's vitally important, and we will help that process. So if you take the example that Carol's put on there, that type of service of actually helping businesses when it comes to the people related items, Sizewell won't go to contract for that type of thing. They won't be a contract for that. It is about now businesses understanding they've got to do these things and then reaching out, either using the platform, reaching out to us as a chamber, and then saying we need these types of services. And then in that example, that's there where we would refer to the types of business that are registered on our platform, such as Carol's and others. Right, what other questions have we got on here? Does Sizewell's green construction approach include biofuels, etc., used in mobile plant? So I'm going to look to colleagues from Sizewell first on this. I don't know who may be best. If anyone from either sustainability side, potentially Ben as well, yeah?
I'll have a first stab, and if I missed anything, Sophie, if you want to. I think everything is under review at the moment. There is a sort of a general strategy being reviewed, and biofuels is part of that. But yeah, Sophie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I assume like HVO, so hydrogenated vegetable oil, something would look to support, and we're developing some guidance on sort of responsible sourcing of that as well, which we can use to help suppliers.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm just having a look through the chat to see if there was any questions hidden in there. No, there isn't, so that's fine. So a couple of other, like the pre-submitted and previous, and I'll ask some of our subject matter experts if they can come forward. So firstly, I guess on the procurement side, so maybe Ben probably best on this. So how do we, so this is from the question from the perspective of the supply chain, how do we get feedback on whether we've been successful or not through the procurement process? How will we hear, what will we hear, what type of information will we be given?
So we're improving the sort of the clarity of what good feedback looks like at PQQ and ITT stage. Funnily enough, this morning I've just finished the new templates for feedback letters. So we are sort of certainly focusing on our sort of transparency requirements moving forward, and we want to make sure that we're supporting you through good structured feedback to establish what areas require improving on. Whether you've won or lost, you'll be getting that feedback of what the strengths and weaknesses of your bids are.
Perfect. And obviously that's a big part of our role as well, from the person that asked that question, is if you're either struggling to get that feedback, then reach out, because we can then help support to ensure we're getting that. But also, if you do get that feedback, let us know it, because then we can help you. Again, if some of that feedback is to do with some of the stuff we've discussed today, again, it would be the examples of then connecting you into those experts that can helping you find that funding that maybe is going to support you in delivering that better in the future. And I've seen some of the examples that Ben has referred to there of some of the feedback businesses are getting who have been regrettably unsuccessful. And for me personally, I think it's very detailed. It's very clear on what you need to do next time. And again, we've been able to facilitate a number of meetings for those who are getting in the further reaches of procurement, where it's been suitable to do so, to help them really understand where they've maybe fallen a little short. But then the good thing is they've listened to that advice, they've taken it on board, taken it in the right spirit, and are now working on the site on other projects. So it is so important. Sizewell will make the right decision. I don't think it's been mentioned today, but they take a balanced scorecard approach to all procurements. So yes, they want to use local. Yes, you can be good price, but it's got to be across all of these different areas, and they took a score across all of it. So it does mean that if you're a local business, fantastic, they want to use you, but actually if you're just not able to deliver technically, or your price isn't quite good enough, etc., it will balance itself out. We're also seeing numerous occasions where businesses are unsuccessful, but they haven't been bad at what they do. By any stretch of any imagination, they've scored incredibly highly. Just someone has scored that little bit higher. So again, understanding that feedback and that relevance to where you sit, I think, is vitally important. Will the same transparency feedback be percolated down to the tier ones? I.e., will they be obliged to share feedback as well? Ben, and then maybe we can bring in the alliance as well on this as a large tier one.
Yeah, I mean, the alliances and the tier ones have their own sort of procedures and processes that they will adhere to. But, as with all things, managing public money principles and things like that we have to adhere to. So, there is a hope and an expectations that they do support all tiers.
And then anyone alliance wise as a tier one as such that wants to just add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd echo that. There is an expectation that they have to, obviously as you work your way down the tiers, it probably gets trickier, but we're working with some large tier one construction companies in our portfolio, and the same is expected of them. They're obligated to use the same systems around expression of interest and closing the loop on that in terms of who's been selected. So hopefully that communication will work its way down those tiers effectively.
And the same message to Matthew asked that question is what I said before as well. Again, that's us. So our yes, we are there to work with Sizewell, but increasingly now, actually our meetings are more with the tier ones, because the contract opportunity for local and regional businesses is with the tier ones. It's not with the client anymore. It's maybe not with the alliances. So our then conversation about transparency and feedback and understanding concerns and worries that the tier ones have is through our relationships as well. So we will be obviously pushing that message, but then also trying to ensure that that feedback gets to you as much as we can. Question that's been put on behalf of someone else. So are there any plans to increase the availability of police escorts for large vehicles on site? The AIL protocol suggests that 5 days notice is required to book in large load delivery. I think on this one, it's so specific to a need. I know we have no one from the site delivery team responsible for logistics on the call today. So David, leave that one with us. We will get you an answer, as we always do. We'll always get an answer, but it would be wrong of me to expect the subject matter experts we've got today to be able to answer that question. I think it's far better that I reach into the site operations team, who will be able to give me an answer instantly on what the plans are for this. But again, as the number of AILs increases, I'm sure there are plans, both with regards to how these things get to site, bear in mind the rail and sea infrastructure that is now being constructed, and the infrastructure that's been put in place around lay-bys, etc. But we will park that one and we'll get that back separately, because with specific questions, I think it's right that we do so. So a general question, so anyone who wants to come forward, might be Ben again to be fair, but how do we get support for our business to improve to the standards to work on projects like Sizewell C?
Yeah, well, the first port of call would be sort of Ashley and the guys, so that we can understand what that looks like, and then we would work together to understand what that need is and how we fix it. So Ashley mentioned so using the data from filling out the forms in the portal so that we can understand what webinars to do next, what training to do next. We're also looking at various other organisations that have excellent sort of learning pathways and support, so that we can sort of connect those dots as well, and really sort of, you know, drive that support forward over the next sort of year or two in particular.
Fantastic, thank you. And maybe I'll let maybe Ryan or someone from the CWA come on first on this, and then if Ben, if you want to after as well. But what time, and I appreciate this is a bit of an open-ended question, but what time will be given to suppliers who don't currently adhere to the standards that we've outlined today, in the essential standards? You know, I know I mentioned it earlier about direction of travel, but from the perspective of you actually who do the contracting, what time and what relationship and what support are you able to give businesses?
I mean, from a CWA perspective, once the procurement starts, obviously it's all systems go at that point. So we do need people to be ready. There is some flexibility. So, you know, we're working closely with Ashley and the Suffolk Chamber team, and you know, we will consider the information within, you know, this system, and if we believe if the contractor concerned is interested but doesn't currently have construction line gold, but we know they've got a great score in the Suffolk Chamber system, we'd be happy to take them through that procurement cycle on the understanding that they would get construction line gold by the end of the process, and certainly before tender, you know, recommendation and contracting. So there is a level of flexibility. Taking that back a step there, if there's fundamental elements missing, like quality systems and this, that, and the other, that's a longer term action, and that's going to need, you know, much longer term response. You're not going to be able to do that in the period of a procurement cycle. So, you know, that comes back to all the hard work that Ash and the team are doing here to identify where the gaps are. Let's get on the front foot early and you know, work on those gaps in advance of those procurement opportunities coming up.
No, brilliant. Thank you, Ryan. And again, so speaking from our experience to date, obviously Ryan's very much speaking from the Civil Works Alliance perspective, obviously big scope of works they've got coming up, but actually we're seeing it from the tier ones that are already on site through the site delivery scope that Tim and Ben particularly focus on, that actually that hand holding, they do understand that they want to use local businesses, but sometimes that bit of hand holding is required. What they need to just have that confidence is that that first step has already been took, that there is a move to be more efficient, effective, particularly around policies and procedures and compliance, and then supporting them through it. I know there's another question a bit further on that someone's asked about, you know, support for ISOs and bits and pieces like this. These are the reasons why getting these answers, what we're then able to do is look at, well, where is that support? So is it going to be down to the example Ryan says of actually then, you know, you're good, but let's get you to construction line, so let's work with you. Is it actually that we as a chamber need to go out to the wider stakeholder landscape that we've got in Suffolk to say, well, we need to put some interventions in, we need to put some money forward, we need to put some training schemes forward, whatever it is. Again, that's where information is key. So for those SMEs who maybe don't require these on a day-to-day basis, that's again where you can make the decisions. But hopefully you've been reassured today, if you don't have the ISOs, at least make sure you get the policies and procedures and practices in place. So if you were audited by a tier one or someone from Sizewell, that you could show that you are running a health and safety accredited place of work, that you are considering your environmental credentials and these types of things, so that you are in the right place. And then if that opportunity then does become live, then you can then make that financial decision, or do we actually go for an ISO? I'll use one example we've got of a Lowestoft, Beccles based business, who small business, small headcount, we're talking sub 25, that is working on Sizewell now quite actively. Not direct for Sizewell, working for multiple different tier ones now. Started with a single contract with one tier one that we happened to make an introduction for them on. They're now working for maybe half a dozen. when they started, they had some policies and procedures. I think they had AISO. It's jumped forward probably now 18 months. They're now construction line gold. They're still not a particularly massive business, but what they realized is actually by taking that step to be construction line gold and that investment in doing that, it's made them almost by default be much more organized on their paperwork and their organization and their structure in the back end. So what that has then in turn helped them do is when they get asked questions, they're saving time. They're saving hours and hours, if not days, sometimes on bids, because they've just got one bit of paper to present as opposed to lots and lots of bits to find. So sometimes there is upfront cost, but the savings of what you can make in time alone are huge. And it is now also supporting them in winning work in other areas. We've got other examples of businesses that when we're talking about people skills earlier, that they understand as a business, their people are going to have to be certain high-level nuclear engineers to work on a project like this. So we've already worked with them to identify funding routes and training routes for them as a business to upskill their people. They're not needed for many years on Sizewell. They've done that in advance. But as a result of doing that, they've won other work on other nationally important projects because of that work they've done to get ready for Sizewell. So again, sometimes it's just as businesses, the more info we can give you, the more we can support you, the better you can understand the best next steps. One for potentially on the sustainability side, how important is it that contractors subscribe themselves to the PAS 2080 standard? So not sure who we've got on that one. Let me just have a look. Was it Carly? Yeah, Carly.
Hello. I've literally just joined, so I didn't even get the question.
Perfect timing. Look at that. Well, Carly, welcome. Thank you. So just we were talking earlier, obviously PAS 2080 has been mentioned, and obviously it's been mentioned on our previous webinars as well, because it is what Sizewell is looking for. How important is it that the supply chain, particularly at the lower sort of more localized supply chain, that they also subscribe to the PAS 2080 standard, or what's the expectations of them?
Okay, so PAS 2080 doesn't fall within my area, but I know the people that areas it does fall in. I don't believe in our current E&S appendix, which is where all of our environmental requirements are distilled in within the contract. I don't believe in there that we've required PAS 2080. We do mention ISO 14001, which is much more my area. But even then, we don't ask people to necessarily have it, but to be kind of trying to kind of adhere to it, but they don't necessarily have to have had the certification. So I don't think we would be putting PAS 2080 on people if we're not doing 14001. So yeah, it's a nice to have, but not an essential, certainly not at this stage.
Fantastic. And you know what? If Carly's just joined and you've just said that, then hopefully for everyone else that's on the call, believes now what Ben, Ryan and I have just been saying about it's not necessarily always about having the ISO. It is about being to the right type of standard. And yeah, it's ideal. Sometimes you do have to have it, or at least if you're working towards it. But Carly, that couldn't have been better put. So thank you. And I know from the September webinar, it was a question from there as well that, look, it's good practice. It may well be as a business that it makes sense for you to have that. And again, if you're unsure on PAS 2080, we did a webinar where it was featured recently. So that's on our website. And I know we promoted some webinars run by the organisation Auditel back in the early summer that did them specifically looking at PAS 2080 for those businesses that want to take this a little bit more seriously. So other questions that have come in advance. Obviously, there was lots of specifics. And like I say, with specific requests and understandings around what's happening, where the opportunities are going to be, etc., get them through to the team. You know, just whether it's me, you've got Karim on the call today, Beth, Ian, etc. Just come through to us, and then we can attempt to kind of find out what it is you need, what it is you need to understand. I'm just looking at some of the other questions. Maybe one for Elliot, who I think's on at the moment, from a people perspective. Is there things Actually, I guess if you could explain, what's the process for getting your people on site? Should you be asked to do so by the project, by a tier one contractor, just to help the people on the call understand that? And is there anything that businesses potentially can be doing in advance?
Yep, thanks very much, Ashley. So effectively, just to ensure that your own people are aligned to their own accreditations and certificates, so have them to hand with your own members of staff. When you go through the induction program, that's going to be required to log in candidates into the systems and therefore get access to the site after they conduct and complete a really effective induction program for us, and just to ensure that candidates and companies have that information to hand as early as possible, so that enables us to book in your own staff onto the project. Be wary, that can take a little bit of time because there's an array of different people coming onto the project at any given time, and we've only got a finite number of people in that induction period. So from my point of view, by all means, just consider your lead-in times to get candidates into the project and inducted at the right time. So as early as possible, start to try and book in that program and make sure that you do have those accreditations and certificates for the candidates to hand as required. And you will be informed as to what those requirements will be. And then just to be wary, to be aware rather of the DBS checks and the BPSS checks as required for candidates. And that's a security and vetting requirement to ensure that all candidates that are being inducted onto site, so that's that front line of site, will have to be completed as well. So a few little things to tick off, but as and when you're on board onto the project, you'll be given that information again.
Fantastic, thank you, Elliot. And maybe potentially one for Ashley, maybe Ben as well. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about ensuring quality of businesses today in advance. What's the process for kind of ensuring that quality throughout the contract delivery as well, both of what they're delivering or what they will be delivering themselves, and their supply chain? So maybe that's a little bit sort of post-contract award, but maybe explain a little bit on that.
Yeah, I shall certainly try to do that. I don't know if my image has come up on the screen. Yes,
oh, there you are, Ash, you're there.
Yep, thank you. As said earlier, ISO 9000 is not an absolute given. It all depends on the scope of requirement that we're asking for, the technical aspects and the risk, in effect. So once we work that out in terms of the scope and the suppliers and their capabilities, which is the key thing in terms of what they produce, as you say, in terms of manufacture post signing of contract, is their capabilities to produce the product or the service. So technically, the people, their qualifications, if there are qualifications required, for example, welding or NDT. So that will be conducted with the quality management lead for that particular contract. They will look at the risks, they will sit down with the supplier and then go through that and build them up if it's necessary, if they're the right candidates for the scope of work.
Brilliant. Ash, thank you. I'm going to ask this question. I'm by no means an expert, so it might be one that's a little bit too generic to be able to answer, but are there any product standards that we should be considering for goods that we supply into the project? Now, I'm probably going to assume the answer to that is yes, but it's going to be quite varied. But I don't know whether it's Ash, Ben, Steve. Are there things that people should be considering as a wider when it comes to products?
Yes, and they're quite varied.
I guessed it probably would be, but I thought I'd ask the question.
It all depends upon what is required. What is the scope of work, what technical requirements are there. As ISO 9000 is a quality management system rather than a product standard, so that doesn't guarantee your product quality at the end of the day. So they will be, for example, welders will be under a certain ISO. For example, there'll be NDT requirements if those are for special processes, for example. So it will be stated within the contract documents that will be issued to the supplier.
Fantastic. Again, that comes to that. Look, there's always going to be some wider additional requirements. We can help educate as when we know those, and hopefully through the process. It's very much a two-way conversation. Ben didn't Ben maybe mentioned it earlier, but once you do get into that PQQ, that ITT process with Sizewell, with the alliances, it is a two-way conversation as well. It's not just they're giving you loads of stuff, give us your price and we'll come back to you. It's, clarifications, are fine to do and encouraged to do. And I think on that as well, an important point to make when you're talking about products that you're going to be supplying in, take it all the way back to the start, UK supply. So they want to use UK businesses. Sizewell has been very clear. It's made its commitments to do better than Hinckley, to do 70% of the construction spend in the UK. So that's a decent step up on what was spent at Hinckley. But it's also it's UK goods that they want to see as well. It's all good and well using a UK business, but if then everything is shipped over, when that could have been done in the UK, then it kind of negates the purpose. So UK supply is so important. It's why Sizewell has signed up to the UK Steel Charter, because they want to see these materials. They've done it the same with aggregate recently as well on some large scale material supply contracts. UK supply as much as possibly can. So again, look at your own supply chains. Where are you sourcing things from yourself? Is there a more localized solution? Be that from international to UK, or is it from UK to local? Can you be using Suffolk firms, Norfolk firms, etc., to really start to do that work yourselves as well? If anyone else has any questions, please keep chucking them in. I've only got a couple more on the pre-submitted, so if any other questions have come up, then obviously please do ask them. One question has been asked a couple of times in advance, and I kind of answered it earlier, but just to cover it off, and maybe Ben can give that Sizewell opinion, so it's not just the chamber saying it. But where it comes to, will suppliers not in the immediate area be considered? If I'm not in Suffolk, can I win work, etc. I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier. It's open procurement. If something's competitive procurement, go for it. You'll just have to, on a balanced scorecard approach, answer everything accordingly. And some non-local businesses have won contracts that have been competitively procured, but will have had to have evidenced how they're going to use local firms within their supply chain, which is where we then work with them. But yeah, Ben, from a Sizewell perspective on that one.
I mean, there will be times where, as Ashley sort of mentioned at the beginning, we have commitments, not just to Suffolk, but to Wales and the North. So yes, we would encourage organisations and supply chains to see how that you can help us achieve those. It won't negate you from being able to win. It may at times help you win. So, as sort of Ashley mentioned, is a balanced approach. It is only one part of the puzzle. You still have to be, technically and commercially able to provide the works. The local spend is just one part of that jigsaw.
Brilliant, thank you, Ben. Right, I think I've covered off all of the questions that I've got here. There's none others in the Q&A. I'm just going to quickly double check the chat to make sure nothing's hidden in there. No, that's not. So obviously, with the exception of anything that's specific, or one has come through, so I'll answer that. If anything specific, then obviously we'll get the answers back on those. From Mark, though, re-product supply, how do suppliers, manufacturers bring UK low carbon products to the project's attention? Well, I guess that's both from a product, but also an innovation perspective on that question. I know from our side of things, we're desperate to showcase this. And we're looking at ways of doing this from the role that we will play as a chamber, both through more in-person events, but also we're planning some exhibitions in 2026 as well that will really help that mark. I don't know, either from a Ben, maybe also Ryan from a CWA approach, if you've got anything in addition to add to that.
I can confirm that if you tell Ashley, he will tell us often. About anything that he thinks is a good idea, but also market engagement in general is something that we're looking at to understand how we can improve how we engage the market, not just to tell you about opportunities, but how we can understand what innovation is available in the market, what capacities in the market, and all of these types of things. So we are looking at just more generally how we can improve market engagement. But yes, Ashley is an excellent champion for good ideas.
And bad ones, which normally I have. I'm not suggesting you've got a bad product, Mark. Yeah, look.
Caveat with what Ashley thinks is a good idea.
Ryan, I mean, there might be nothing else to add, but just in case from a CWA perspective.
No, nothing really to add to that other than, just echo what I said before around working closely with the chamber, and obviously we stay close with Ben as well, and we'll adopt whatever processes are developed from a Sizewell perspective.
Brilliant.
So nothing really to add now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so we're pretty much done. Just as where we're talking about local engagement, so we are, after a little bit of a hiatus, we're going back on the road. We are going to do some in-person events again. As mentioned, we've got exhibition planned for early 2026. More information on this soon. But we are doing our Engage, Update, Inform series. We're doing an in-person event in early November. This is just purely for the local and regional supply chain. There will be other events available in the north and in Wales in particular, where there's a lot of focus, and I know Ben's spoken at some recently. And there will be more general events where anyone from the supply chain can come along. But from our role within supporting businesses who are based in the 6 counties of the East, there is an event. There is still a little bit of space. We are limited by numbers. Obviously, the invites went out just over a week ago and we've been inundated, which is fantastic. But for anyone who hasn't registered, go visit the website, get on there quickly. We will create a waiting list if we go over the top. But it will just be a bit of a chance to update on what's happening on the project, understand a little bit more about the complexities. Because again, big part of our role is to help educate businesses on actually the scale of this project. I say it all the time. I still don't think the vast majority of people or businesses truly understand the size of this project, because it still blows me away every single day with some of the stuff I find out. So I think the more and more we can keep unearthing that and helping people understand actually what's happening on that little bit of coastline in Suffolk, I think the better. So please do register for that if you haven't already. And like I say, if you do miss out, don't worry, we'll be doing more through 2026 and facilitating as many ways as possible to make it good and easy for local and regional businesses to meet the project, to meet its tier 1 partners, to meet its alliance participants, and to help create those relationships. So to use Mark's example, I'm not saying you can bring your products with you, Mark, but that would be the types of environments where you can then start to talk and showcase what you can do. Right, so we are done. I thank everyone for attending today. As mentioned, we've recorded this today, so this will be posted on our website by the end of the week, hopefully. We will share the slides and all the details and links to the website and our support program and bits and pieces with absolutely everyone that's registered on this and the previous September edition. Please, if you do nothing else from this, just go onto the portal and update it. Bear with us if you have any queries, questions, have to send us an email, because obviously we are going through a lot of updates at the moment. But it's so important. That helps us drive the next step as we go through 2026 and really start delivering that support. But without that, I will say thank you to absolutely everyone for attending today, and we will catch up soon. Take care.